Now, the fun atmosphere in the little town of Helen makes it one of the most popular destination spots in Georgia. Several 100,000 people visit there every year. An annual Oktoberfest and hot air balloon race, plus many other events and festivals, add to the town's charm. But it wasn't always that way. You see, back in the 1950s, Helen was a former logging town, and it was in decline. And then a man named Jimmy Wilkins gave that local economy a boost when he started the Wilco Hosiery Factory. He made argyle socks and women's apparel. Now, my first contact with Helen was when a bunch of us kids used to go over there to buy some fancy socks. The factory had a big box that held some of the mistakes that were made in the sewing. Now, you might find a sock with a hole in both ends, or one that just kept going so you could have worn it all the way up to your middle. If you did find a pair that matched, you could buy them for 10 cents. And at that price, well, we could pass as the sportiest looking young'uns in Clarksville. Time passed, and my next contact with the town was in 1969, when Pete Hodgkinson met me one morning outside of Grace Church in Clarksville. He'd been with Wilkins and Bob Fowler eating at Paul's Steakhouse, and they were interested in getting some paint colors to make the village look sharp to stop some of the tourists on their way to the new Unicoi Park Lodge. I agreed to look things over. On one foggy, wet December day, I went to Helen. To me, in the mist, it looked like one of those little villages I had known when I was stationed in Bavaria during the Korean conflict. My degree at the University of Georgia was in drama, and a specialty in scene design. That and a lot of imagination prompted me to do a bunch of watercolor drawings of what I thought this little town could look like with a bit of facelifting. The next weekend, I presented a folder of photos of the town as it looked and sketches of what it could be with a little creative work. What I didn't know was the kind of a wild man that I'd come in contact with. Pete Hodgkinson took my drawings and lit into Jim Wilkins and the townsfolk so strong that in a week or two they had not only taken to the idea, but they were willing to pay their own way to make it happen. I drew up shutters, fascia boards, balconies, iron sign brackets, and shop fronts. Ray Sims and J.S. Chastain had two crews working full-time rebuilding all the shop fronts on the entire village. I had told all the local papers to hold off on reporting about our work until there was something to see. When we were finally ready to have something to show, they all broke the stories at once, and Helen had become a tourist attraction. To have music for this event, we needed some real German music. The White County High School band agreed to play at the courtyard of the Dairy Queen. The music wasn't exactly pa, but the spirit was good, and we all danced in the street along with the traffic. Now, I kept going with these things for about 6 years. Pete Hodgkinson kept appearing at our house with his little yellow pad of ideas in the morning before we got out of bed. Finally, I decided to leave Helen and Pete to their own devices. I was getting deeper into the history of our area with painting and writing. Then, in the spring of 1976, Pete was killed in a balloon crash over Toccoa. That enterprise was his last attempt for another great adventure. We will always miss Pete, but Helen has survived, and somehow I like to think that he's somewhere laughing his head off at all the work he created.